College football week 12. Let's start in Ames. The Texas Longhorns went and got the win 26-16 over Iowa State. Ted, this game had all the ingredients for Texas to get beat, right? Yeah, the Jonathan Brooks injury, Ames at night, but to their credit, they took care of business. They moved to 10-1, and I don't know how impressed I was by the way that they played, but it was clear that they were a better football team than Iowa State. Iowa State's offense just could not match the big plays that Texas was able to produce during this game. And I thought that was the difference. They just couldn't find those plays offensively. I thought the Iowa State defense played tough, man. I thought they played about as well as you can ask them to play. Just couldn't get enough from Rocco Becht in that offense.
Yeah, I thought Ewers looked good.
Agreed.
He made some really nice throws, escaping the pocket, getting out, and putting the ball downfield. And it seems like that's where Iowa State really got hurt, is whenever he would extend and then they'd be hanging on to coverage and they were able to create something. The front seven of Texas is really, really good. And they've controlled the football games. Like everywhere else, it's like they're just kind of hanging on, but that interior defensive line and front seven makes it really, really difficult for other teams to ever really get anything established. Iowa State had some opportunities they just couldn't capitalize on, and they created some points doing some nice stuff, right? Just to put the ball in the end zone. But yeah, Texas got it done when they needed to. That's a nice win for Texas, considering everything that's on the line. And that game was close and probably too close for comfort early, and they were able to extend and hold Iowa State at bay. Pretty good performance by them.
I can only imagine how much you love the first half of this game. Defense and field goals.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it was. And hey, Bert Auburn, he was the difference maker in the game.
That's right.
What, 3 for 3?
Yep. That's right. It's a different football game if they're inconsistent at kicker, which, that's something that we didn't even hit on. We missed another chip shot field goal ourselves. So that's a problem, especially whenever we're leaving such a small margin for error. We can't afford to be missing field goals. So yeah, that was pretty good win by Texas.
You mentioned that defense, and it's what I expected. Iowa State was just completely one-dimensional in this game. Their running backs had 16 carries for 23 yards.
Yeah.
They could not run the football against that Texas defense. Credit to Byron Murphy and T'Vondre Sweat and that group. They just shut that stuff down. And Rocco Becht, he didn't make enough plays in the flow of their offense in the passing game. And it's hard to do that when you have to be that one-dimensional against a talented defense.
When you can never get to good down and distances to run some stuff, it becomes very difficult.
Yeah, and you think about the scoring plays they did have. He threw a beautiful ball to Eli Sanders, but then they get the extra point blocked. It gets returned for a 2-point conversion. It would have been 13-10. Instead, it's 15-9. In a game like that one, that's really significant. And you talk about how it affects the team and the momentum and the crowd and all of that stuff. The 4th and 1 run fake, throw it to the tight end. That was pretty sweet.
That was very sweet.
But that's what they had to do to produce big plays. And it's not sustainable, man.
Yep. No, I agree. Credit Iowa State for finding ways to generate some points and to stay in the fight. But Texas was just too much for them. I still think that if they can continue to work on their offensive line and get a running game for Rocco Becht, that he's going to be a dangerous quarterback.
I'm with you. I agree. Texas in a very good position to make the Big 12 championship game and in a very good position to make a college football playoff. So we'll see what it looks like for the Longhorns over these next couple weeks. Moving on, Washington went to Corvallis, and the weather looked miserable. It was like cold and like a sludge from the sky. It was, it looked miserable. And Washington, didn't score a point in the second half? But to their credit, you draw up an environment, a style of game that you would say, hey, yeah, Washington ain't winning that one. And they did. Weather was awful. Oregon State wanted to run it and be super physical, and they got it done on the road in a tough environment, and they're 11-0.
Yeah, that's really impressive. That is a really, really good Oregon State football team. Late in the year, you've seen everything Washington has to offer, just to keep the level of play that they have. It hasn't all been pretty. They've snuck past and got some wins in some poorly played games on their end and fought through some stuff. But to go get that one at Oregon State, now that's big time. I'm 11-0 from Washington at this point in the season is incredibly impressive.
No doubt. Now, there were some issues catching the football in this one, but when you talk about a game that comes down to probably a handful of plays, Oregon State, you end up losing by 2, and you gave up a safety because the deep snapper fires it over the punter's head, and the punter has to kick it, soccer style, kick it through the back of the end zone. That hurts you in a game where you lose 22-20, obviously.
Safety and 2 turnovers,
Yeah.
That's the difference in the football game.
Well, that and Roma Dunze. Good. Penix was – I thought that wide receiver core would be a little too much for Oregon State, and Roma Dunze was that dude in this game. 7 for 106, 2 touchdowns, had the big catch on the last drive to seal this thing. As much as good of a job as Damian Martinez did in that ground game with Oregon, and they played that style, he had that big fumble. But Washington made the plays in the passing game. Oregon State just couldn't make them. Ted, you look at DJ Uiagalelei's final line, 164 yards passing, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns.
Yeah, not enough. Not enough. You got to be able to make some big plays against a team like Washington and Penix. But man, it's crazy. If Washington goes undefeated, and their schedule has been incredibly tough. It's been a brutal, brutal schedule. So if they're able to march through that undefeated, and it's not like it's going to be easy next week, they've got a rivalry game with a good football team, a dangerous football team. Impressive. I didn't think that they would be where they are right now. I picked Oregon State to win the football game. I've picked against Washington a couple of times now, and they keep proving me wrong.
Well, you didn't factor in Jabbar Muhammad, former Oklahoma State Cowboy. Dude's a hell of a corner, man. Yeah. 2 massive plays in this game with the interceptions. But, yeah, that's all things considered, the environment, the style, Corvallis at night, for them to go win that type of game in that weather, that's big-time stuff from Kalen DeBoer's crew. That's impressive. And, yeah, they've got Washington State next week at home to complete the perfect regular season.
That'd be really, really impressive if they pull that off. But
no doubt.
Again, Washington State, tough football team.
Yeah, they look good on Saturday. So that'll be an interesting one. Final game, Kansas State went to Kansas and beat Kansas for the 15th time in a row. Crazy. Kansas State wins 31-27. And you know what my number one takeaway from this game is?
What?
Lance Leipold's a hell of a football coach.
There ain't no kidding on that one.
31-27, Jayhawks played their freshman third string quarterback, Cole Ballard, and still had every opportunity to win this one. In those black jerseys, those things, I can't decide if I love them or hate them. I'm still on the fence.
Yeah, I
They got to be
probably
sick that they let that one get away.
I know, man. It's I keep treating them as the old Kansas, and it's like, well, at least you played a good, tough game, but you know they've had some of those where they should have won, and I, I don't know. I think it's one of the best coaching jobs I've ever seen, with how like historically god awful Kansas was, not just for a year or 2 years or a handful of years, for like 15 years, just like a 1 or 2 win season at best, and turn into a legitimate threat in the Big 12, one of the better teams in the Big 12. It's impressive.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like it's changing.
And they were up 27-16, early third. Right? Devin Neal scores. I believe that was his third rushing touchdown in the game, but they didn't score a single point the rest of the way. That's going to be a tough pill to swallow for that group, but you talk about it all the time, man. In close games, oftentimes it comes down to special teams. And Kansas, Trevor Wilson muffs the punt, gives the ball to the Wildcats around midfield, and of course they cash in on the mistake. They're late with that Will Howard touchdown run. Jayhawks, if he just fair catches it right there, Jayhawks would have had the lead and great field position, but instead just an absolute brutal mistake, and one play never costs you the football game. That's not how this sport works, but that was a critical special teams error for the Jayhawks.
Yeah. And the turnovers, and there's a common theme in a lot of these games with the losing teams, right? Giving up a blocked extra point for a 2-point conversion, a safety, snapping it over someone's head, putting 2 points up there. Like these mistakes, a muffed punt, like those mistakes, especially whenever you are like considered to be maybe not the traditionally stronger team in the moment, like those are the areas that you have to be best at. You cannot give free points and free drives to these good football teams. They'll absolutely turn your lights out.
One thing, Kansas drove the ball late, right? And Ballard ends up throwing the interception in the end zone. If you just have an incompletion there, then Kansas State's backed up a little bit. I think they're at the 10-yard line, maybe the 11. He throws the interception in the end zone on the 4th down play. And credit to Kansas State for ending the game with the ball in their hands. That was 5 minutes and 33 seconds left in the 4th quarter when Ballard throws that interception in the end zone. Kansas State ran it 7 straight times. They completed 1 pass, took a knee, game over. It's what the Sooners did as well. That's how you finish a game.
Yep. That's big time. When
Kansas thought they were going to get it back, and they never saw it again.
Yep. That's what good teams do at the end is, if we can hang on to the ball, run the clock out, especially on the road, hand the ball to the official, jog off the field, get on the bus. Let's go home. Like that's impressive. And it makes you wonder, well, why didn't you do that the whole game? I don't know. Sometimes things just unfold the way they unfold, but Kansas State still in the fight.
Will Howard with a nice performance and an absolute, just a fantastic quote after this one. There is no better feeling than beating little brother. 15 in a row for Kansas State over Kansas.
Yeah. And like whenever you grab it from them, whenever they're they're at a good level and they're playing really good. Like that's the most frustrating it gets for Kansas, but they ain't going anywhere. They're going to be around.
As long as they can hold on to Leipold and Kotelnicki, I'm with you, man. I'm excited about the future of that program.